Well, a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Edge. Today, we bring you Nancy Kalembe, the only female aspirant in the 2021 general elections, vying against 10 men. Well, if that isn't an iron lady, who is? Hello, Nancy. How are you?
Hello.
You're welcome to The Edge.
Thank you.
Yes. We are here to understand who Nancy Kalembe is and what makes you. So take us through your childhood, a little bit about your childhood, to your career life, to today, who you are.
Wow, my childhood, that's 40 years old.
Yes. What are those memories?
Well. Hello, viewers. It's a pleasure to be sitting before you today. And as my friend Latifa has said, my name is Kalembe Nancy, a female presidential candidate for 2021-2026, and may I add, the next president of Uganda and the first female commander-in-chief.
I like.
Anyway, I was born on the 15th of September, 1980. This year I made 40 years. And I was born to a man called George Patrick Bagea. He was in politics as well. He was a businessman, really. In his earlier life, he was a policeman and then an army man. And then he joined politics later and all that. And then my mother was Ida Sise Kubaza. Unfortunately, both of them have moved on from this life to a better life. And she was a nurse. Though I never met the nurse. I only met the mother and the businesswoman. Wow, my childhood. I don't know where to start.
What are those memories?
Many. People have been asking me about how I'm coping with so many people all of a sudden. We've been given security. And there are so many people in my home. All of a sudden I have to feed a lot of people. I have to take care of them in case of anything. They're my responsibility now. And some people were saying that I don't seem fazed by this. Why? I said, because I come from a family that was very large. So I'm used to having a lot of people in the home. While I was growing up, even myself, I tend to have a lot of people at home. So an extra 10 is not a big problem. More fun, I'm getting to know them. While I was young, I said I have 18 brothers and sisters.
Okay.
So a household of 18 brothers and sisters, you can imagine. Then there's relatives and all that. And my father liked, I guess, many people. Because anytime we had visitors, you just got up and cooked or whipped up something or tea. There was always something to give whoever came to visit. So I remember we used to have so many people at home, and it was always so much fun. There was a time my dad came back home with over 200 visitors in the night. So we got up and we had nowhere to put them up, and he said they were following me and they had to sleep somewhere, obviously. So make it happen. So in the middle of the night, we had to call up people. We need plastic, please open your shop. We need plastic plates. We need cups quickly. We need ABCD. And somebody was in the kitchen cooking, and my brothers were running around all over Kampala. Of course, there was no lockdown those days, so you would find a shop here and there open. So we had to buy stuff for them to eat, sleep, and be comfortable.
So your childhood, with that story you've just told us, a journalist and an alleged pastor, because we've had that conversation before. How do you think that has shaped Nancy Kalembe, the presidential aspirant, who is going to contend come 2021?
First, I'm not a pastor. I've never been a pastor. I've just been serving in church for so long. Some people would think I'm a pastor. People have actually asked me, Nancy, by now you should have been a pastor. I said, that's not my calling. I believe my calling is somewhere else.
Okay.
Some I couldn't tell them at the time, but this, I believe this has always been my calling, to lead this nation. How it shaped my life, first and foremost, because people are valuable. In my culture, we say, obugaiga bantu. So the more people you know, the more friends you have, the more networks you have, the wealthier you are. We've kind of forgotten that and moved it to monetary terms. But I always ask people, if money is what makes you rich, try getting sick. Have money and no one, and then you'll understand where true wealth lies. It's people who are going to be by your bedside day and night, not the money you made. So there's things in life that I hope people will change from. We've, as a leader, you're basically leading people. You don't lead money, you lead people. All other things are just tools to help you and support whatever activities you have with the people you're going to work with. Leadership is purely working with people. So I think having a father like I did, who had, plus my mother too, it's just that my mother died when I was much younger. But our household was like an ever-expanding tent. There was never a boring moment in our house. There was a lot of love, a lot of laughter, a lot of joking, a lot of fights. But we always said, when you fight with someone, you have somebody else to talk to for the day,
yes,
until you reconcile with the other one. So I think growing up, I learned not to keep grudges, because it's too, we used to say, as in when you keep anger for so long, when will you get old? You have a lot of time and it's not worth it. So I think just learning how to live with different kinds of people, learning how to accommodate people the way they are, whether you like them or not. It's not about you. It's about the fact that the person is there. They need attention, you give it to them. They need help, you give it to them. They are in your house, you love them, you support them. That's what it's about, really about you. So I believe that has helped my leadership journey.
Now, on that note, people have had ambitions to become doctors, ambitions to become engineers. But why a presidential aspirant? Why do you want to be the president of Uganda?
I wouldn't say it's been an ambition for me. It was something that needed to be done. I've never really found satisfaction in jobs per se. My satisfaction has always been in service. That's why throughout my life, I always had a job, but I always had something on the side that I used to do that was voluntary or some kind of service. That's why I was either serving in church full-time, or I was working with one organization or NGO or hospital or something all the time on the side, because that's where my real satisfaction came in. I always told my friends that I like my work because it enables me to play. It pays me and facilitates my playtime.
And you believe that is what is going to happen when you become the president of Uganda?
No, when I become president of Uganda, it's full-time service. I get to serve completely and not worry about funding. what in my service. All my life it's been, I get a job and the money I get the other side funds what I call my playtime, the time I spend maybe serving in different spaces. During the recent COVID lockdown, no one had prepared for something like this. No one had prepared for, I don't even know what to call it. It was a pandemic that affected everything, everyone's life. And while we went out to serve, we started collecting money. We started collecting resources. We needed food for different people who were struggling. And I was working partially because offices were closed, but I still had to work because in the fuel industry, fuel still had to come in. We still had to import, we still had to distribute. I didn't, and the good thing is, right now, a lot of things can be done online. So I used to spend the day working with Interreligious Council, and in the night I would sit down and do my paperwork, find out where which truck is, find out who is loading or offloading, and coordinating with my workmate and seeing how we can best do that. So I used to work in the night, so at night I was earning, and then during the day I was serving. So the fact that I was blessed enough to do that, it enabled me still to get a bit of what I was earning to put it in what I call my playtime, my extracurricular activity to help people. I call it playtime because for me it's a pleasure, it's an honor, it's something I do because I love it.
Let's talk about your ambition to become the next president of Uganda. The three biggest problems that Uganda has and how you're planning to solve that.
I will answer 4 of those, not 3, because they are kind of interlocked. One affects the other.
Okay.
I think that one of Uganda's biggest problems, 1 is leadership, 2 is poverty, 3 is our health sector, and 4 is our education system.
Okay.
Everything rises and falls on leadership. With the wrong leaders, there's no hope. With the right leaders, the nation will rejoice.
Poverty?
When it comes to poverty, it's basically, we talk about economy. And most times when we are talking about economy, whether it's leaders or the elite or people who are the economists, basically we think about GDP, we think about national economy. But what builds that national economy? We have to start from down, from the foundations, because it is the individuals that build what we call, you can't have a national economy standing on its own. People pay salaries. They earn an income, they pay taxes, they buy goods and they sell goods and they manufacture and they all that. And all that is because there are individuals at the bottom doing all this to show the beautiful figures that come out in reports, in national reports. And my team and I decided that we will use 4 tools to handle the economic problem, so that we can handle this, approach it in a multifaceted way, in a multi-pronged way, so that we can tackle it from the individuals up. One is the community businesses. Because these community businesses will help people get jobs first and foremost, and then earn a living. So they will be tackling unemployment and tackling poverty at the same time. So people will get out of that because they are working. They can, and we are looking at it from what do you have in this area code. That's why we're calling them community businesses. We don't want to impose. What our colonial masters did, they came in and imposed on us what they wanted us to plant, what they wanted us to do economically. But this time we're coming from what are you good at, what do you already have, and what are you doing?
So there we're looking at you tackling unemployment.
Yes.
Briefly.
So we have from community businesses, we want to set up innovation centers, we want to set up talent development centers, and we have to set up incubation. I said incubation and
innovation.
Centers.
Okay, and the current budget that was passed, what do you have to say about security being on top of all the other things?
By having a budget that's skewed to security says a lot about our country. Let's look at countries like Switzerland. Some of the Scandinavian countries don't even have the army. They have police only. Why is that? They've achieved a certain level of internal peace that we've not yet achieved. The budget on the army, is it to protect us, to protect Uganda's sovereignty, or to protect the government from the people?
Okay. Now, I want us to go a little bit to who you are as a woman standing for this position. Now, the African society believes that a woman's place is at your edge. You should be married, you should be having a home, and your place is behind your husband, pushing him to achieve his ambition. What do you have to say about that? And as you're giving us that, there's also the fact that majority of the voters in Uganda are women. The ones who actually cast their votes are women. And women don't believe that a woman can be president. How are you planning to get them to your side?
I don't think that women still believe that a woman cannot be president. Women have been lied to for very many years, for generations, that they cannot do a lot of things. We couldn't vote. In my culture, women were not allowed to eat chicken because if you ate chicken, you would become barren. Women were not allowed to work or go to school. My grandmother was one of the first female English teachers in Uganda, my mother's mother. And one of the things was girls her age were going off to marriage and she was going off to school. So she was told that she was going to be barren. She'll never have children because if you go to school, these white people will spoil you and you'll never have children. Many years later, she did not only have children, she has grandchildren and great-grandchildren, all of whom she met, because my grandmother met her great-grandchildren. And talking about, wow.
A woman's place in society. Yes.
Talking about things that women can or cannot do. Years have passed since women thought that their places were in the kitchen and, behind their husbands. We've seen around the world there are several women who have been president. We have one of the women that I love so much is Sirleaf Johnson. She was a formidable president. Liberia was a difficult country. And it is a woman that brought peace in that land. When you look at, during the COVID period, the countries that were female-led are the ones that didn't struggle the most with the COVID-19 pandemic. We've seen in Uganda, I'm bringing it closer to home.
Yes.
When we look at Uganda, KCCA, URA, UNRWA, every place that a woman touches, it literally turns into gold. Yeah. Women have a way of nurturing everything from nothingness because that is our natural setting. We are given sperm. We produce babies. And from this helpless little delicate thing, we produce great men and women. We produce kings and generals and all kinds of great men. Think of all the great men you've ever thought about came from the delicate hands of a woman.
Amen to that.
Now, when we're thinking, where is the woman's place? A woman's place is so many places. Where she is needed is where a woman's place is. A country like Uganda needs a woman to lead it, to organize it, to put it back in order. Why? Because a woman is a nurturer. when we look at countries like Singapore, when we look at United Arab Emirates, we were at the same level in the 80s. Look at where they are at now. They've done something different from ours that our leaders have failed to do over the years. And I believe that if this country is handled by a woman, number one, women think children first. Anything, if a house catches fire, you'll find a woman running in and you'll ask her, what are you going back for? Is it money? Is it some precious thing? It's my child. She'll do anything to get through that fire, to get the child. Uganda has children. The Ugandan children, they've been ignored. They've been played with and manipulated. Our leaders all along have played divide and rule. That's why you see there's a lot of division along tribal lines, along religious lines, along political lines, which are so unnecessary. You see all the hatred. We have politics of hatred and anger and lashing out. You see, it's not necessary. Right now, for Uganda to heal, it needs the nurturing hands of a woman. And not just one woman, all the mothers in this land to come together and decide
now,
to change this nation.
As we're speaking about the nurturing, the nurturing quality of a mother, corruption is one of the biggest problems that Uganda has faced. Now, how do you think that someone who has been with you in leadership and they have been acquitted for corruption should be punished?
You see, corruption is not the problem in itself. Corruption is a symptom. Corruption is not the disease. It is a symptom of a bigger disease. When we talk about poverty in this country, we're not talking about physical poverty only, that someone has money or property or assets. There's a bigger problem in this country. There's poverty of the mind. And when we are dealing with corruption, we see a lot of times that the corrupt individuals are the people who have the physical cash, but they have poverty of the mind because they have not been nurtured well as children of Uganda. If you love your country and you've been raised well as a Ugandan, why we need a woman president is so that this nation can be mothered and the children of this nation can be mothered to learn that this is my house too. If it's dirty, we all get ashamed, so we need to clean it up. We don't have to steal from one another. So one of the things that we need to change mindset. When it comes to corruption and stealing, we shouldn't compromise on who it is who has done what. In this government, we've seen several times someone has been corrupt, they're caught red-handed, they get a slap on the wrist, and they get away with it. But in my government, they will face the full repercussions as stipulated by our law. It should be made very, very unattractive. Corruption should become very expensive so that Ugandans learn that this is not something we should go into. We have laws in this country that deal with corruption, and those will be in full play regardless of who you are. However, something I believe that should have been put in place a long time ago. Okay, something I believe should have been put in place a long time ago concerning the corrupt individuals in this country is if we get you and you're corrupt, when do we know when you started being corrupt? So which of your properties is actually yours and which of them is not? I know a certain country, which I'll not mention here, that made corruption very expensive. Actually, their citizens up to date are not corrupt in their country. They can corrupt everywhere else, but are not corrupt in their own countries. We need to get everything back and pay back. So if we find that you're a corrupt individual in my government, no property belongs to you, because we don't know where you draw the line. In my dialect, we say, a thief has only 40 days, meaning you've probably been stealing for 40 days that you have not been caught. So we need to make this very expensive for you, and then everybody else will learn.
When you become president, what are the first 3 things you'll do?
We need to sort the leadership issue out. Put the right individuals in the right offices, regardless of your tribe, your political inclinations, or your religion.
Second?
Put institutions right. Empower them. Structures. Putting structures and systems in place so that the government can actually run, not based on one individual. All questions shouldn't be to one individual. Every question should go, and every problem should go to the sectors that need to answer to it.
Third?
The third is we need to deal with now the other systems, the education, the health, and the economy. We need to change some, overhaul others, so that our country can start moving. The issue of glass ceilings and whether I have faced some of them. I think every woman in one way or another has been faced with a glass ceiling, but it is up to us to decide which ones we want to break and which ones we are not comfortable breaking. Personally, I like to do things out of the ordinary. And I've faced glass ceilings every time. From school, where girls are not allowed to do this, and I said, why? Is it wrong? No. So why aren't we allowed to do it? Because you're a girl. I said, no, I'll do it. Because it is not wrong. It's an opportunity that is available, so I'll do it. Very early on in my life, I wanted to play rugby. And my mother told me she will kill me before the game kills me. Her reason was it was a dangerous game, so I put that aside. But that aside, I faced glass ceilings in employment. I remember when I came back from Bank PHP in Nigeria, I had led the team that did research for East Africa and Uganda in particular, because they wanted to expand into East Africa. So when we were coming back, obviously I had to come back at a higher rank than most people my age. I was 28, and I was at a level where not many people under 30 are at. So, of course, the other guys in the bank wonder, why is she at that level? She's so young. And then to make matters worse, I looked younger than 28. So the snide comments you'd hear in the corridor, I wonder who she's sleeping with. Because a lot of people think that you cannot be a woman and you rise up in the ranks if you're not sleeping with someone, if you're not someone's daughter, if you're not someone's wife, if you don't have a special cheat from some office. And I think we need to change these ideas. As I become female president, this is the ultimate glass ceiling that I will be breaking in this country, because it's not been seen before, but I've broken several glass ceilings along the way. And as I break them, I tell my daughters, I tell my friends, I tell my young sisters that you too can. As I break this national glass ceiling, come 2021, I will be speaking to every woman in Uganda and East Africa, and maybe Africa, that there's nothing impossible. There is no limitation in life apart from the limitations we put on ourselves. I always say, I like to quote the great book, the Bible, because that's where I get my energy, my source, my knowledge. And I know that there is nothing impossible if you believe. With God, nothing is impossible. If God created you and said, this is good, and when he created us, he put his spirit in us, it means we are capable of so much more that we have not dared to explore. Just because society has said, family has said, my friends said, my teachers said, that's not necessary. Refocus. By doing this, I'm telling women, remember who you are. Who are you? It's going to start with our identity. We are African women. African women are strong. When we look at our history, we had the Dahomey women. We've had women warriors who are fierce fighters, who fought lions and wild beasts and fought in wars. By my breaking this glass ceiling and becoming the first president of Uganda, And first commander-in-chief, I must add, I'm telling every woman in Uganda who's listening to me right now that the only limitations you have are the only ones that you set for yourself. Otherwise, remember who you are. Remember and be that which you are supposed to be.
Thank you. Beautiful. Now, how does it feel to be the only female presidential aspirant competing against 10 men?
How does it feel to be the only female president competing against 10 men? Frankly speaking, I feel nothing. You asked me earlier what my life was like growing up. I grew up with 8 big brothers in the home. And I've always been surrounded with boys. I was a sportswoman. And in sports, it's the majority of people in the sports are men. So you're either competing or training with men. If you're very fast, then you won't train with the girls. For example, when I was at university, most of my training for athletics was with the boys because I couldn't. My athletics coach told me if you train with the girls, you won't get any better because you'll feel like you're the best, therefore you'll get complacent. So what he used to do, he used to make me train with the boys because then I would, by my nature, if a boy was faster than me, I'd think, why is he faster? Because biology says so? No. I can train and counter what biology says. He has testosterone, but I can train harder. I can plan better. So it was always about that. So it pushed me further and further in my sports. And this is just another bit in life. It's not really a competition. It's another bit in life where I find myself faced with men instead of women. If it's with women, well, it's normal. If it's men, at this level, men tend to have spaces they believe are created and made for them. I believe this time round they have it coming.
Wow.
Because I don't believe any such thing.
Okay. Well, thank you. You've all heard it from Kalembe. Nancy, thank you so much for speaking to us.